Yeah, so this is probably going to be a little controversial for some people because you never got to the levels of your sparring because you made excuses. And this is what I'm talking about. Martial arts is supposed to be about self-defense. And self-defense is not grab someone by the lapel or the wrist. And I've never been grabbed like that in fights in the street. However, we know that when fighting point karate or kickboxing, or even MMA for that matter, that's not what you consider real fighting because there's rules. So let's take these rules and think about it. In every form of fighting, including boxing, under rules, sports in this case, you literally want to hit the person without getting hit. Hence, point karate. If you look at Mayweather, when he fights, his hands down like a point karate fighter. His upper body turns like a point karate fighter. And for whatever it's worth, those of you who love MMA, and I'm one of them, point fighters that are doing it with decent quality, they literally are like the kryptonite to the guys who fight with their shoulders square. So the fighters of yesteryear fought under different rules, even in so-called point karate. The groin was a target because Kempo was a dominant style in the West Coast, and some regions of the East Coast too. Texas and Chicago and California were the predominant areas with groin kicks. So if you fought in that region, you had to kick fast to make sure that you did not get scooped into the groin. Now, New York was known for hardcore stationary fighters. And again, I can't go back too far because I only saw the fighters from 1976 and beyond. However, that's quite a bit of a while. Not counting, I saw videos of people before that. And this is what I noticed. In the 60s, besides a few people, such as Mr. Norris, who was doing what we consider today, well, I shouldn't say today, because they even changed the name of that. He did what was called a blitz, which is a cross step that goes about 10 to 20 feet, depending on how much momentum you have. He did that against Skipper Mullins. Now, both these guys originally were from Texas, and they were fighting in the Long Beach Internationals at the Grand Championship Eliminations, the semifinals. And one of them, meaning Mr. Skipper Mullins, jumps up and throws a 360-degree spinning back kick. That I do not see anyone doing that today because this was offensive and not defensive. However, it wasn't so much that it was him doing that, it was the fact that he's a Taekwondo stylist. So styles made actually all of us get better. For example, even though he was a Taekwondo stylist and so was Mr. Norris, Tom Sudor, they were in a tournament with groin kicks, but neither one of them threw kicks to the groin. That was a matter of prerogative. The grand champion that day was Mr. Alan Steen, who actually beat Mr. Norris. This was 1966, but if you watch these two matches, which to me those are the earliest two matches that I ever saw inside of a ring when Mr. Parker was actually judging, you see a level of professionalism that I didn't even see in the 1970s when I actually saw in New York. In New York, it was really hardcore. You smelled a lot of Tiger Bomb, or Tiger Bomb predominantly, or Bengay. However, when I would watch videotapes of people fighting in the 70s or even 60s, I didn't see the arsenal of techniques that I saw years after. I mean, mind you, I'm not the oldest person, but I've been around for a minute. Longer than most of you guys. April 19th, 1976 and May 20, 20 was when I went to my first tournament to compete in. So I've seen more than most. However, moving forward to what I would consider when sport karate, point tournament, or what have you, was ultimately the best for me, was when people had the diversity of kicking with both sides. They were able to sweep. They were able to hit people with hands and fists. They were able to fake and reposition. Not many people did all of that. There was a handful of people who did. But those who did not become versatile, to me, limited their true potential because they were taught by people years after to just use what works. In other words, what you're good at. But to me, I always felt that, see, you guys probably didn't. In the karate tournament, I still had to make it home via the train station to the South Bronx during the 19 70s and 80s, pretty tough times. So when some of you guys just went home to your suburbs or got in the car, welfare wasn't paying for no goddamn karate tournaments. So my attitude behind the tournaments was a little different. It was more dangerous to make it to my block with the trophy without being stuck up. So I always took martial arts seriously. However, I was limited with my skills because I come from a style originally. Well, first I trained in the park, right? So there was always somebody who said they know how to do martial arts, and some Vietnam vet while smoking some weed in the basement with a yin yang, you know. And I trained with a guy he was the superintendent. But then what I realized was that, you know, I mean, I was a little kid and I was influenced. I realized that I really loved this martial arts, and I started really studying it to the best of my ability. And at the time, I could just go into the library and try to get some books. I make a fist like this on my right hand, and I didn't even know that until I started teaching, and some of my students did that. That was the book on Kyokushinkai, where they were actually doing the fist like that. But let me keep going. So to me, martial arts tournaments with rules still gave you the ability to try to hit the person without being hit, which is the same fighting intentions with any form of pugilism, whether it's a boxing included. You hide behind your shoulder, the best block in the world not being there, footwork, fakes, repositions, angles being diverse, because God forbid you had an injured leg, you should be able to protect yourself with the other leg. Now, I'll be honest with you. In the 1990s, I was heartbroken because, and even though I started back in the mid-80s, because a lot of the people who I looked up to me, sold out just because they got on some teams. And these teams were influential to the point where people who were part of a family, meaning a school, all of a sudden were extracted because of some money to get on some so-called team. And man, that was the worst thing. Now, mind you, getting down with people who already were from a school, like a pickup game, that was different. You know, that to me, team competition, North versus the South, East versus the West, New York versus New Jersey, that was always cool to have. But in terms of a professional team that people all of a sudden don't even train with a school that taught them that, I thought that was disgusting. Now, from Point Karate, most of the guys, or a lot of the guys, went into kickboxing, or what became kickboxing. Before that was full contact. And if you look at their skills, their kicks were a lot better than even a lot of the guys today. It wasn't just Superfoot. It wasn't just Superfoot and Jeff Smith. A lot of people. Actually, one of the best kickers that I ever saw, to the point where when his arms were actually, you know, with illness, his arms, he wasn't having control over his arms. But Marty Manuel, I saw a videotape of him kickboxing with his arms pretty much dead. And this guy can kick with both legs, man. I've never been impressed by people who only do techniques from one side. I'm sorry. And I know Bruce Lee, you know, was the one that influenced a lot of people to do that. But to me, man, that shit did not impress me. I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to say. If you was just a puncher or just a kicker, say, yes, I give you props where it was due. But no, I did not and was not the type of person who I enjoyed watching. If your techniques were whack, they were freaking whack. And let's keep it real. Yeah, some of the guys won regardless because they had influence and what have you. But from an aesthetic standpoint, it wasn't artistic to me. That's why I've always been a stickler to the quality of the technique. And when people couldn't kick or couldn't punch and they made excuses, like how the hell is it that these freaking guys have been teaching martial arts all these years and they don't have the freaking split? You know, I made a big issue about that. People had bad hips because they've been stretching wrong all these freaking years. I never saw a damn picture of no damn Yamaguchi in a split. Not that you need the split in order for you to be able to kick someone to the head. My point is that how many hip replacements have we had because people have been doing exercises, that's in stretching, the wrong way. Why do I say the wrong way? At 54, I don't have any hip problems at all. But I touched the way they did. Raising your standards. And Point Karate to me, sport karate, is just sparring in general because we used to do just sparring, right? And in the dojo, you wouldn't stop for a point. And I fought against a lot of guys who were supposed to be kickboxers at the time. And one thing that I noticed immediately was that their distance was so much closer. So anytime they would get close to me, I was hitting them with a freaking side kick to the face or a hook kick roundhouse, getting my hands better. I'm not bragging, guys. I can show you videotapes where I've hit people with 5 punch combinations to their face. Here, here, back here, maybe on this side, where I went the entire circumference. Now, what was I thinking? I was thinking this. I don't know about your area, but in my area, where you have to worry about the person not in front of you, but the person to your right side who's getting ready to snuff you. That's right. Snuff you. So you have to make sure you pay attention with your eyes and your ears. Completely. Not be, I'm walking in the mall. Nah, man. Now, the quality of the technique comes from 2 things. It comes from traditional martial arts when it goes in and out. Then it comes from what I would consider real deal fighting too. So like when I did the traditional karate, it was cool under that sport. It was kind of fine. But I know that crap wasn't going to work in the freaking street. It wasn't. However, if I worked on my ability to bridge the gap, to respond really quick, in other words, the elements of the fast twitching muscles, oh, hell yeah, that came from traditional karate or even traditional taekwondo in my case, yes, that can transcend into what would be the ability to protect myself in the street. And there's another part about that. Most guys who really can kick and punch really well would never be able to walk across the projects without running because their heart rate would be so high that they would be freaking scared. I've seen that happen too. I've heard a lot of people say, oh man, these guys were bouncers with us, and when the shit hit the fan, they ran. I heard people say that too. But again, we're talking of martial arts under different rules. You have many benefits, and one of the benefits that I always saw was the ability to have not 1, not 2, but 3 and 4 different weapons used in a variety of ways. What I never liked was people kicking with the back leg only or predominantly, because that's like fighting and only throwing across, which is not going to give you the full benefit of it. In addition to that, what always separated martial arts to me and boxing was the kicks. And most guys couldn't kick. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm being a stickler, but let's keep it real. Show me some videos. I've seen a whole bunch of videos, and most of them couldn't kick as good as Skipper Mullins back in 1966. Or someone like Mike Warren. Forget about Mike Warren's kicks. His punches were so tight. Oh my God. You want to talk about footwork and kicking ability? Someone like Jerry Robbins or Gerald Robbins. Oh my God. A heavyweight that would shuffle and do a 360 as if he was going to throw a spinning hook and then hit it with a round. Guys were incredible. And I never saw in person, but I saw videos of the real deal blitz. When you saw someone like Howard the Flash Jackson, man, this guy would explode and hit you so hard with both hands. These people are the ones that I consider the true legends. In New York, I didn't see any of that type of fighting. No one was blitzing, except for one guy in 1979. Webster Avenue, PAL. Same place where Grandmaster Flash battled against the Funky Four before it was a plus one more. Props to my man, Raheem. I saw a guy, rest in peace, by the name of Ron Henderson, fight with his hands down and blitz people, meaning go across the line with his hands. And it was incredible because there was guys there like Ramon Smith. So this guy was the one that actually beat Howard the Flash Jackson in the 1974 PK Original World Championships. And then he lost to Istro Dueñez, also from Taekwondo, Jun Lee Taekwondo, I believe, in Mexico. So, New York had a different style, rough and tumble. I love the New York style because if you was weak, you fight someone like Sam McGee, man, he's going to sweep you by kicking the back leg out, spinning, almost like a 360, without going to the ground, kick the back leg as if it was a spinning hook, like a running back trying to avoid a linebacker. And then he will continue or in the face. Have you guys ever been dying because they got swept in a tournament and the head hit the floor or anything? Because I never heard of that. That was another thing that was incredible. You seen the cycle, no style, I would sweep to the leg, and that wouldn't be the point because you still had to follow up. So styles made you get better because you was forced to add to your arsenal. So now when I saw the sport really looking incredible around 1983, 84 on the national level. If you ever watched that match with Ray McCallum versus Scorpion Barrage, two of my favorite 5 fighters of all time, I don't care what year you watch that fight, you see some real deal kick butt techniques on both sides. That's why it has like 30, 40,000 views. I'll repost that again. These guys were throwing with bad intentions. Texas always had. They never changed. Same thing with New York. The only difference between Texas and New York, they had an arsenal of Taekwondo. Kick you to the head, kick you to the groin. Hit you with a rich hand, reverse punch, sweep you, and if you try to blitz at them, they will go under, at least in the case of Ray McCallum, and all that in one fight. And if you hit the floor, you better keep your legs up or your hands up, because they were trying to stomp you out. Let's go Chicago, hardcore fighters, and Ray McCallum, of course, from Texas. And these dudes, again, if you want to see an example of what I would consider hardcore, the epitome of what sport karate is supposed to be, watch that match. You see both these guys, right leg, they both blitzing in, countering. Oh my God, it is just phenomenal. And a lot of other people just never got to that level because what they saw sport karate as, and I understand, was a waste of time. Why bother when they're so, it got to the point where if you wasn't on a team like it is now, and again, I'm not talking about today. If you guys are happy with what's happening today, then please just click off, man. I'm not talking to you. Because to be honest, you're unconscious and incompetent. And you don't even know that things should be a lot better. But ignorance is bliss in some cases. And you guys think a dive bomb is a blitz. Or even worse, you think it's called a Superman punch when you see a dive bomb. You don't know shit. Yeah, I said it. You don't know shit. And no one's taking the responsibility, I believe, as a gatekeeper to educate people. And I'm going to put together a group of gatekeepers. Us one, because we're all in this together. We don't have anywhere to send our students to compete because the gatekeepers, I should say the powers that be, weren't gatekeepers anymore. They were just trying to get to the next tournament, to the next year, because most of them didn't even make a profit because their business model wasn't successful. And even now, it isn't successful. It's become better now because the prize in terms of the medals are a lot cheaper than trophies. So now they are going to be able to make a profit. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a capitalist. Yeah, make a profit. However, how long would people watch basketball if the ball didn't have to go in a hoop? Just hit the rim or the backboard. Not long, right? So when you go to a tournament, and I did a video as what's the name of that? I called it a whistleblower. How people started cheating as far back as I saw as the mid-1980s. On the national level, guys, I'm not talking about local. Local, it stood the same for a while, especially in New York. But they were easy for me to beat because they didn't have any footwork. They didn't have any angles. You see me, and again, I'm not bragging, guys. Go to the videotapes and you see what I'm talking about. These guys were limited to maybe 2 or 3 techniques, but at least they were hardcore techniques. In the meantime, today's fighters do about 2 or 3 techniques with blanks. The glove's not even in their hand. I did a video showing people how others, what I consider cheating, but to them it's not cheating because they figure that I didn't get caught. So it's not cheating because to them it's just a sport. But the truth of the matter is that martial arts has never been a sport, but it is an opportunity to work on your fighting skills without having to get into the street altercation under some formal rules. But I'll give you the mindset that I've had for years, and maybe this might help you. I'm sparring with somebody, and they don't give me a point. I don't mind. I get a chance to practice some more. Now, if the person actually scores on me with a solid punch, what I consider a real technique, then I give them props. Man, that's good, but I'm going to get you back. And I got to thank them for showing the weakness in my defense. That's the mindset I've taught all my students to do, too. That's why they never fell or drank the Kool-Aid to become, yeah, one of those guys, yeah, as my mother says. Like, what the hell is that? It doesn't even, yeah, what the hell is that? It's embarrassing. You know, we're supposed to be black belts and then have martial arts skills, and then you invite someone to go watch some sparring, and they go, what the hell is that? They're not even impressed. A black belt is supposed to be someone who knows how to do things that other people just don't know. And most people were lied to that once you get your black belt, you are going to start really training and getting better and learning more. And that wasn't the case with most schools. Most schools, once you got black belt, which made you a minority, you started teaching for free. And they acted as if that's what you had to do, that was your duty. That's what I remember seeing. And that's why I never did that. Yeah, we had internship to earn what would be a position as a school owner, because I had as a instructor. Because guys, I used to have 6 schools with that. I have more than that now. I'm gonna have even more than that because I'm not impressed what people are doing. You know, you got people with schools for 10, 20 years and they don't even have 100 students because their marketing sucks, but they don't even, you know, take responsibility. They blame it on the students are the same. Nah, man, that's not true, man. If you want to impact a school locally or a neighborhood locally, then you have to learn how to work with the local leaders and get the word out that you're a place for solutions. And that's the truth. We have a lot of solutions, possibilities, but the truth of the matter is that most of the martial arts instructors that I see that used to compete way back when don't now, and they don't even look like martial artists anymore to me. Now, some are training hard, like I was. I was training 3 times a day, and I was getting heavier. I was using the wrong strategy. Some of you guys right now don't even know how to give positive advice to your students when it comes to nutrition, which is the biggest and most important self-defense, the immune system. You guys are freaking eating chicken and steak and french fries and mashed potatoes and rice. And the truth of the matter is that you literally are poisoning Antonio 100% here, Puerto Rico, or Colombia. So what I'm saying is that as a martial arts instructor, we have responsibilities to lead by example. And if you're not going to get into street fights, which I don't suggest you do that, you should be able to have somewhere to test your skills against somebody else, because that's what it used to be. We went to tournaments to see if when we sparred against people who didn't know our techniques, how well we would do. Crazy, especially in the 1990s when these gangs started to take over, which is the karate teams. Active attack. And as I call it, the pimps went and grabbed talents from here and talents from there, and then got credit for teaching them. When the truth of the matter is, all you had to do, or all you have to do is, or they'll still keep the school patch who taught them, because obviously they did a great job if you're going to put them on the so-called team. Do what the instructor in the school who taught them gets recognized. If we did that alone, it will make things a little more fair. You know, it's sad. It's really sad to me. But when you have top competitors that started teaching people how to recoil their hand and raise the hand as if they hit the person, by definition, they were teaching people how to cheat. At the same time, then you had judges who really thought they saw or were seeing things. And they were given points for it with good intentions, but they were unconscious and competent too, because most of them couldn't do it themselves. So what I believe is that if you know how people are cheating, for example, the extended glove rule, we put that rule in years ago because I was educating the judges that this is what some of the competitors do. To this very day, it's even worse. They'll have, let's say, this is a glove, and they'll grab it to the end, hit somebody like if it was a knife, you know, like a rubber knife. And those of you who participate in that, I understand there's no tournaments, I get it. But those of you who know better, shame on you. Shame on you for letting that crap become what would be the rule of thumb. And I'm saying this to the highest level of Wacko. When you're throwing an extended glove while going backwards to the body, hell's wrong with you guys? How could you? When I block, I go on an angle and I'm throwing techniques as if someone had a knife, because in my mindset in the street situation, being Puerto Rican, they might have a knife. So I want to get behind the elbow. So it's really self-defense sparring. That's what I believe it was always. So I was able to develop a lot of techniques because I was thinking way beyond that. But most people didn't do that. They were playing a game of touch, a game of tag, a game of illusions, a game of speed, a game of just going directly straight in like a Formula One car. Not diversity, not angles, not repositions. You're supposed to take the elements of other, what would be styles, and implement it in your sparring. Whether the rules or not, you still want to hit the person without being hit. You don't want to get cut. That's being hit. You don't want to get knocked out. You want to be versatile. I'm gatekeepers. I started a group called Us One, but I think I'm going to change the name of the group to Gatekeepers, because somebody has to keep the standards high. I mean, it's been so long that we've had it, and I get it. You know, it's exhausting to be able to try to hold back time, but I would not participate from a school owner standpoint in those tournaments. As a competitor, I go, you know what? I still figure out a way how to. Yeah, man. Call it whatever you want, but I'm telling you the truth. I beat the shit out of them in the ring, outside the ring, down the damn block, especially now that I'm in my fighting, what would be weight. And that's how it has to be. The older we get, the more dangerous it is for us, because people see us as victims, as my mother says. And I gotta say it the way it is, man. Most of the guys are sellouts. Sellouts. I looked up to you so much, and then you freaking sold out. How can you teach someone how to slap someone to the shoulder? You know, my heart goes out to someone like, you know, Grandmaster Joe Coley, who for so many years, he was the only and last person, yes, the only and last person that would not give points for what would have been nonsense. And it breaks my heart to think how much turmoil he had to go through when people, like some little kid would look at him like, what's wrong with you, not giving a point? And somebody yell and scream. I mean, to rest of you guys, like when I judge, I don't give a point for that crap. I warn them actually beforehand. I go, guys, warning. If you are going to throw a punch, you're going to close your hand, kick, you're going to hit your opponent, you're going to have to stop them. I mean, they allow people today with the glove extended to call timeout when someone. A different game. So to me, that's sport karate. That means that what we did must have been different. Because I don't want to wishes. But what I'm saying is that there's enough people old enough right now to know better, and we can congregate together and have what I call it sniper fighting, only because those guys different techniques back in the days. Even though they weren't versatile for me to enjoy myself as a spectator, they were still dangerous. They would knock you out with one punch. They would sweep you and then stomp you. That was their bread and butter. Most people had like 3 techniques, bread and butter. And again, you had these Taekwondo fighters that had incredible punches. I don't think those reverse punches better than someone like Mike Warren, Albert Cheeks, and these guys were known as, you know, Taekwondo stylists. The same thing with Jerry Robbins. There's a photo of him throwing a direct, straight punch. These guys are punching with bad intentions, as if they were trying to break boards. You know, they didn't even have gloves on at the time, but they were still hitting to the body like to crack a rib. And then in the 80s, they kept that same attitude, except with equipment on, except you can also get swapped by Taekwondo stylists. You know, rest in peace to someone even like Steve Nasty Anderson. He would blitz at you when you would jump up, and he would sweep the back leg. I posted a video of him and Tony Young when you see him doing that in the ring. You know, this was the diversity, the vast variety of techniques that made it so incredible. These guys were fought different. You never saw Jesse Thorpe fight against even Robert Rich Hand Harris. They were classmates. You didn't see Randall DeLoach even fight like his brother Kenneth DeLoach as juniors. Yeah, these are names guys may not ever have heard of them, and it's sad because I will give them their props. They were incredible. Then you would see guys like Keith Vitale. Well, he didn't fight like Mike Genova. And these guys literally were from the same school and trained together. Joey Scheffler didn't fight like them either. Similar but different. My point is that you had original flavor and style. And that's what made you get better. When you fought against someone who you knew was going to hit you with a crazy round kick with a back leg, you was forced to move to your right. If those kick on the right leg to avoid the kick. You know, when you with someone with fake and reposition and do an angle, that wasn't happening too much because most people going forward and back and fighting out of strength. But when you learn from someone like, rest in peace, Joe Louis, how to go on an angle or do a left-right drill, it took your fighting game higher. Billy Blanks' footwork, and nobody can tell me otherwise. They can't say that, you know, someone like Billy Blanks, you know, wasn't dangerous. Not only did he break my jaw, I saw him crack people's faces. Shuffle axe kick right to someone's cheekbone, and the cheekbone collapsed right there in the spot. Hit people with 360 spinning hooks and knock them out. I saw these techniques, and most people, they have that diversity. Yes, some were really hardcore, but not that diversity. And I'm talking about in the 80s. The most versatile could do something like a kick and punch, and that was mostly the Taekwondo stylists because they kick better than most that I saw, or the Kung Fu stylists. The Japanese stylists used to throw like really strong kicks, but they weren't really good when it came to hook kick, roundhouse, or side kick. Now I did see, rest in peace to Fred Miller, fight from a cat stance. I fought him in 1985. He's in the cat stand, and the only reason I beat him was because I wasn't in that street line there fighting his style. He probably would have knocked me out. The guy was freaking strong as hell, you know, with bad intentions, each technique, but they didn't have the diversity. They didn't know how to do the angles. You know, at that point, I already had trained, you know, as an assistant with Joe Louis. Otherwise, Fred Miller would have killed me. And when I did beat him, I wasn't surprised because, but I can see that his techniques, oh my God, he had a wheel kick and a back leg roundhouse kick from a cat stance that if you stood there, like a lot of guys during that time still would, he would beat them and would have beat me easily. But I wasn't doing that. I'm like, the best block in the world is not being there, baby. You know, so by watching people do techniques like a scissor takedown, man, how awesome was that? A scissor takedown. And then there's a bunch of people that they're delusional. You know, they actually think they did a bunch of shit. And I'm like, show me the freaking videotape because I don't believe that, you know? Like, I remember, I got a vivid memory. And a lot of guys just talk about stuff they never did. And I'm like, what's wrong with these freaking people? I don't get it. How you doing, sir? So the quality of the technique must be consistent with the way you was taught in class. However, the way you was taught in class was limited based on who your instructor was because a lot of these people, for example, Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks never gained weight and was always able to do that cat stance and that side kick and that front kick. I know, I spent a lot of time with him. But a lot of the guys really got obese. Very few people are like, and I got to give props again to Grandmaster Joe Coley. This guy trains like he's going to fight against, you know, Bill Wallace again. Same thing. Huck and Wallace is not out of shape. You know, these guys are still the real deal. And they're not the only ones, of course. You see Thierry Cassell and you see, you know, Shadoshi Van Cleve. These guys are still in physical shape. And throughout the years, they've been able to reinvent themselves and use competition, at least in Van Cleve's case. And I think that's what keeps you on your toes, you know? Yeah, you may not be good at the kicking and punching no more, but now he went into jiu-jitsu, you know, BJJ. Which, again, that's another thing too, guys. I've never taken any style and disregarded it. Even though I personally, listen to me, I personally think that Goju was freaking disgusting to watch. I understand the breathing. I understand the posture. I understand that stuff. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It looked stupid. Inshinryu looked freaking dumb. However, I know it's effective and I get it. The vertical punch, and there was the Kobudo line with Kata and the Bunkai, you know, Okinawa test style, because it's not really karate, it's not Japanese, guys. Karate is Okinawa. Say George Alexander actually was able to confirm that he's been to Okinawa a number of times. And those of you who do not know, karate, the way of the China hand, as taught in Okinawa, was really mimicking Kempo from China. Because they were doing this thing from Zen, Buddhism. So it's a religion. So he confirmed that according to the Okinawans, karate, the way of the China hand, before they changed it to the way of the open hand, In Japan, it's called Kiri karate, as compared to what they do. And what's the difference? Have you ever seen the way Okinawas train? Their body is strong as hell. Their fingers, they use all these different things that looks like Hindu exercises. They're using weights, and it's just a different game because they had to make their body into an armor. But most people have no idea. And what do they say in Okinawa when they bow, as confirmed by Sensei George Alexander? Nothing. They don't say no us. That's Japanese, not Okinawa. The same thing, when you bow, Chinese, you don't say anything either. Now, we used to bow and say Taekwondo. Tangsu guys used to say Tangsu. I don't know why we didn't say Tangsu or Mudo, you know. But I know these were the styles that preceded what would have been Taekwondo, because Mudo Kwan and Tangsu Do are styles that were there in terms of those names. But for some reason, it was combined, you know. And Hapkido, to us, Hapkido was just a self-defense that we did. So when I trained at Sang Soo Tiger Kims, man, we were doing judo. We're doing boxing techniques. I mean, judo to the point where we used to dive over people with rolls, you know, to learn how to fall. And that saved my life, guys, because one time a car was coming towards me when I was on the sidewalk in 125th in the corner of Lexington Avenue. And I was with my grandmother and I, we were watching, and my grandfather, we were watching these girls do double dutch, and this car went crazy, got onto the sidewalk, and what I did, I took a step and I did a dive roll, and they saved me. So the rolls that most people have no idea how to do anymore, which is crazy, unless you're in a jiu-jitsu class or judo class. They taught that in karate, they taught it in taekwondo, they taught it in kung fu, they taught it in everything. You know, we were always taught how to be diversified in a variety of ways, doing techniques, you know, with the left leg, with the right side. Man, I even remember the first time I threw a kick at a karate guy with a back leg, he tried to hit my foot with his elbow, like this. That's what I was kicking. Whoa. But I thought it was cool. So the styles made you get better. But most people never gave sport karate a chance to really develop into what I would consider real versatile fighters. And it's sad because you guys could have been so much better. And I'm saying it like that because I believe that. I saw guys who had an extreme amount of talent who got turned off because the sport was just so disgusting. And that's being nice about it. It really got disgusting. Those of you right now who literally, you see what they've done to our sport, but you haven't been a gatekeeper. I'm one of the few guys who throughout the years, nationally and internationally, have kept it real with people. And I say, I will never do that crap. I'm not going to sell out like that. Because I still have to go home. And yes, I'm in the Boogie Down Bronx now. I still have to go home. Yeah, look at that. Now, Miyagi, at least, was actually doing what they considered the umbrella of Okinawa Te, you know, which is Goju-Ryu. But he's not the one that gets all the credit, right? Because the minute it goes to Japan, people really give more credit to Yamaguchi. And because Yamaguchi was in Japan and Peter Urban trained with him, that's why Japanese karate here in America became more popular. Goju. Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks told me the story. Because whether you guys know this or not, he was the dude that brought Yamaguchi to the American soil at Manhattan Center. Either 1967 or 68. I apologize, it's one or the other. But he told me what happened after that. Because the cat's son from California turned around and wanted him to only promote Goju when Banks had everything. You guys know that. Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks had every form of martial arts being represented at the Oriental Wall of Self-Defense, or Brendan Byrne Arena or Nassau Coliseum, and it was on Warrior Sports every freaking year. And why do I know this? My instructor performing there, but not just that. Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks for 2 years was on my payroll doing public relations. And what did I do on almost a daily basis? Ask him those questions of every month, him having tournaments. Every month, yes. He promoted tournaments every month at Sunnyside Gardens. He told me exactly how he did the deal with partnership and also partnerships with ABC, Wild World of Sports, Rule Knowledge, executive producer of sports, and him did a deal. So he was in the middle, and he was partners with both of them, but they weren't partners together. In other words, he got paid to show the show on Wild World of Sports, and Madison Square Garden and him split what was the gate of the events. To the point that, and I believe in 1976, it wasn't in the main arena. They did 2 shows the same day, and both of them were packed. Banks told me so many stories of these people who lie about things they never did. And you don't have to, guys. You guys have had the talent for years. Do not have your reputation beat with the person who you trained with. The heck? Even right now, I'm 54. So let's say for some reason I want us to start training in a different style, such as Filipino or Jiu-Jitsu. In 10 years, I'd probably be pretty good at it and develop our own reputation. But most people want to get props from somebody else's rep. And I think that's okay, but what have you ever done? And if you did it, how long ago was it? Because just like in hip hop, I don't stop. And that's the funny thing. I'm part of 2 genres, martial arts and hip hop. And when I hear about the battles, about the techniques, about the mindset of the dancers, about the culture, they're more passionate than the people who used to compete in tournaments or even martial arts. It's like, I don't get it, man. Like, I never lost that passion. Yes, I got caught up like most people in the way, but let's keep it real. Your guys know that people are running in with a glove, flapping each other to the damn shoulder, raising their hand, getting a freaking point, and then either you don't do that and you still hit them with a good technique, so like that you don't get influence, which would be potentially developing muscle condition, and then it transcends to the street or somewhere else. Or you do the same thing that they're doing just in the name of a sport, just in the name of a trophy, in this case a medal. And then sometimes people aren't even earning some income. There's another thing too. Like, you just freaking winning a damn medal, and you fought against maybe 3 people in the tournament, all of them from maybe 2 countries. You thinking you're a world champion? Pendejo. Come on, man. We can do that for real. Like, we can honestly have enough countries involved, have real deal more done, and teach seminars of the right thing. Not everyone fighting the same. You know, and it's embarrassing to think that incompetent people really think that today things are better. When you have an idea, you might have read something, but you wasn't freaking there, okay? Maybe your father was there, maybe your mother was there, maybe your instructor was freaking there. And you don't even know any better because they might have been just limited to where they went. I'm talking about that at the high levels, at the national level, and I went to my first national tournament in 1981. So since 1981 up until recently, I still go, and not much has changed in the sense that there's a bunch of people with their ego just being big, and they think they're professional judges, man. Come on, man. Like, what? And they walk around like authorities. And it bothers me because they got good intentions, but they're not putting in the time to investigate in the facts. The fact of the matter is that things used to be bigger and better before, but they don't know that. They don't know that. And quite often, people would disregard people like me who aren't afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to lie. I believe that we can do better than ever. And yes, I'm going through it. I look about the same now, feel about the same as when I was in my 20s. Well, I had to take care of my nutrition first. Most of your instructors, just like in culture, will help you get diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, How come the martial arts never educated us on nutrition? Those old rules are the rules that I still fight by. So yes, it's old based on time. So they must be done again because they don't really help you to be a more versatile martial artist. But it's embarrassing and sad for me to think that people who know better follow the crap that happened. And I know that it's hard because you figure if I don't compete in tournaments today, then where would I take my students? And the answer is not too many places, you know? Not too many places. But we can develop that. So yes, the answer is yes. We will be having events. But first and foremost, we need the gatekeepers, the people to step up and say, that's all I can stand. I can't stand no more. And when I personally be able to compete, when I compete in regular tournaments, yeah, I'm going to go compete in regular tournaments. I always have. But why? Because I got to go somewhere. But I never turned around and sold out and yeah. Embarrassing. And everyone does it. And then the team, two. Why is there a 2-point kick? Mike. How come it can't be fair? Everyone throws 1 point, 1 technique. That's the way it used to be. Sweep. How can a sweep be a point? No follow-up? Come on, man. Anyway, guys, the gatekeepers. If you want to be one of the gatekeepers, then put the number 1, and I will invite you to the group. Either I'm going to change the name of the group of Us One, because that's what I believe. I think all of us are important, as important, as long as we take action. But we have to be gatekeepers. Competition should be where you and I are sparring, and you are my judge, and I'm your judge. When you hit me, I'll tell you, and vice versa. That's called honor and respect. And that's the way I believe it should be. Us one. We all in this together. And it's sad, but the best is yet to come for those of us who do not drink the Kool-Aid. This too shall pass, and you can get better. Everyone here can get better. I'm working on my skills to get better than ever. Anyhow, guys, if you find any value behind this and you want to be one of the gatekeepers, Us One, then please put a number 1, and I'll invite you to that group when I put it. And I suggest you rewind because I went over a few things. And if for some reason I offended anybody, too bad, because I'm offended. AB, see you at the top. Thank you.